Good evening. Glad you joined us back for Old Testament studies here. We've made it studying a chapter at a time through Genesis over to chapter 33. We pick back up in our story where Jacob is leaving where he's been for a couple of decades down there with Uncle Laban. He's made his fortune, so to speak, bringing all his herds and flocks and family and everything, going back to the old home place. But remember, he had left there because his brother Esau was going to kill him. And now he's handled Laban. Laban's went back, and his uncle, and now his brother is coming at him. Somebody's went and reported, say, hey, your brother's coming. He's got an army with him. So, of course, naturally, Jacob thinks, I'm dead. He's going to kill me. He splits the family and the herds and the flocks up into two groups. And he says, well, if they attack this one will run. If they attack this one will run. We got a 50-50 chance of half of us getting out of here. So, here we go, chapter 33, verse 1. Jacob lifted up his eyes, and he looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. Now, I guarantee Jacob is concerned. He's scared. And he divided the children unto Leah and to Rachel, his two wives, unto the two handmaids, Bilhah and Zilpah. And he had children by all four of these women, I think. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he passed over before them. He was out in front. He's going to meet Esau first. He's got the family units divided up back here behind him. He's got his favorite, Rachel, and her son Joseph in the very back. But he's out front, giving credit for that. And he sees Esau coming, and he starts bowing himself down 7 times. He bowed himself to the ground 7 times. I guess that means he'd bow himself down. He's way out there, out of bow shot to start with probably. And he bowed himself down, and he'd get up and he'd walk a little bit closer, and he'd bow again. And you remember, he's already sent all these gifts of herds and things out, and flocks, and one after another to meet Esau. And somebody said, hey, your brother's sending you a present. So he bowed to the ground 7 times till he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him. Now, what do you think happened to old Jacob's heart when Esau was just jumped off his camel or whatever he's riding and started running toward him? He's probably thinking, he's going to kill me. This is it. He's going to kill me. And he deserved it. He had really treated his brother wrongly. His brother had a right to be angry. He had murder in his heart, but he had a right to be angry at his brother. So Esau's running to meet him, but Esau gets to him and he embraces him. And he fell on his neck and kissed him. And they cried together. They wept. Now, if you're a student of the New Testament, you recognize this same language in the story that Jesus told about the prodigal son. He took all of his father's had coming to him, and he'd went and he wasted it on riotous living, and when it hit bottom, he didn't have anywhere to go, but he's come to his senses and said, I will arise and go to my father. Said even his servants got it better than me down here now, having to get a Jewish boy getting a job feeding pigs, and he's out there slopping the hogs and starving to death, thinking the pigs are eating better than me. And he decided to go home, but I guarantee he was scared to death. He said, maybe Daddy will let me just be one of his hired hands. And he didn't feel worthy to be called his son anymore. But the old prodigal son, he goes home and he looks and he sees his father up there on the hillside. And first thing he sees, the Bible says, here come the father running to meet him. And he, like Jacob, he's probably thinking, I'm dead. He's going to beat the tar out of me. But Daddy got there, and the father put his arms around him. Same words used here. Said he embraced him, and he fell on his neck and kissed him. And then he turned around, the father did, and he told his servant, said, go kill that fatted calf. And said, bring a robe, bring shoes, and bring a ring, and put on him. This was my son that was lost, and he's come home again. You know, sometime when you think you've turned your back on God and you're not worthy to be his child, remember that. That's the kind of God we serve. He wants you to come home. He's like that father that had the prodigal gone for so long. The father had a broken heart. Probably went out there every day and said, I wish I could see my boy coming home. And Esau's kind of playing this part back here in the Old Testament, when Jacob deserves whatever Esau gives him, but he's just glad to see his brothers come back home. fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Verse 5. And he lifted up his eyes, Esau did, and saw the women and the children, and he said, Who are those with you? And Jacob said, The children which God has graciously given thy servant. See, Jacob recognized that children were from God. Whatever the circumstance, they were a gift from God. Then the handmaids came near, they and their children. They bowed themselves. And Leah, his other wife, with her children came near. They bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. The whole family's there, bound before Esau now. And he said, Esau said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? All them presents of flocks that he had sent out to his brother. And Jacob said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord, his brother. His Lord used in the sense of like a sir here. I'm your servant, your Lord, not the Lord with a capital L. These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. We'd call it he was trying to butter him up. That's what he was doing. Soften him, his heart. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep thou that thou hast unto thyself. You ever feel like that? All my life I've always felt like I have enough. God's given me enough. I've always wanted more, but God's always given me enough. And that's what Esau said. I've got enough. You don't have to give more to me here. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if I've found grace in your sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I've seen your face as though I had seen the face of God, and you was pleased with me. When I saw that you wasn't going to kill me and that you had forgiven me, I saw that forgiveness in your face. He said, You was like God to me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that's brought to thee, because God's dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. And by the way, that's kind of the motive of our giving too, that because I have enough, and more than enough, I've always felt like God expects me, and I want to be able to give to help other people too. And he urged him, and he took it. Verse 12, and he said, Let's take our journey, let's go, and I'll go before you. And he said unto him, Jacob said back to Esau, My Lord knows that the children are little, tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me, and if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. We got to take it easy. We can't travel as fast as you and your 400 men. So let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and you go on, I'll lead on softly. I'll lead them slowly up behind, according as the cattle that goes before me and the children will be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord, unto Seir. I'll catch back up with you. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that let me leave some of these men with you. And Jacob said, No need. What needs it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way into Seir, and Jacob journeyed to Succoth. And he built him a house there. So he's coming back to Canaan, to the promised land. He goes to a place called Succoth. Got its name because that has to do with booths, and that's what he set up to start with, booths for his cattle there. He built him a house, and he made booths for his cattle. We'd call them sheds today for our cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. It has to do with booths. 18. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padanaram, and had pitched his tent before the city. So he's just in a tent now before he gets to build his home and all. And he bought a parcel of a field, bought some land, the place where he'd camped, where he'd spread his tent. He brought it from the hand of the children of Hamor. This is just the deed recorded in the Bible here, that Jacob bought this land from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, and he gave 100 pieces of money for it. And first thing he did, even before it mentions him doing anything else here, he's learned something like his grandpa used to do. Remember, wherever Abraham went, he'd build an altar, a place to meet with God and a place to worship. He erected there an altar, and he called it Eloi Israel, which literally interprets, God is the God of Israel. Now, Israel was the new name that God had given Jacob when he wrestled with him, wouldn't turn him loose, right? I'm going to call you Israel. So that's not talking about the nation yet. The nation got their name from Jacob, who God gave him his name Israel. So it'd be literally like me saying, God is the God of Tazz. And I hope that you can say that God is the God of fill in your blank. Now, you can't still be trying to be your own God if he's God now. So is God your God, or are you their God? Hope it's the Lord Jesus. See you next time.